It was the summer before I started high school, and my parents had to leave town for a wedding. My older sister was supposed to stay with me, but at the last minute she got invited to a beach trip with friends. She begged our parents to let her go, promised I'd be fine, and after enough pestering, they finally agreed. I remember being ecstatic about it. 4 days with the whole house to myself, unlimited junk food, video games till sunrise, and no one hogging the bathroom. It felt like a vacation. The first 2 nights went exactly like that. I stayed up late watching movies, ordering pizza, and sleeping in until noon. Nothing strange, nothing off. I locked the doors like my mom reminded me to, left a hallway light on, and kept my phone nearby in case of emergencies. But the third night was different. Not in a dramatic way, at first. I just had this weird feeling I couldn't shake. The kind you get when you walk into a room and feel like someone was just there. I kept brushing it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe it was the eerie silence of the house without anyone else breathing or moving. But the feeling wouldn't go away. Around midnight, I was in the living room playing a game online with a friend when I suddenly noticed a slight shift in the sound around me. The kind of thing you only notice when you're wearing headphones for a while. The house felt quieter than usual. Too quiet, even for night. I paused the game and took the headset off. I sat there for a few seconds, just listening. And that's when I heard it. A soft, hollow thump. Like someone stepping on an old wooden floorboard. It came from the back room. Now, the back room in our house used to be a small den, but we mostly used it for storage. My dad kept boxes in there, some old tools, and random holiday stuff. The door was always kept shut, mostly because it didn't really latch well, and the cold air from the AC never reached that far. That room always felt heavy, if that makes sense. I used to hate going in there as a kid. It had one of those single thin windows high on the wall that barely let in any light, and the shadows inside always seemed deeper than the rest of the house. I stood up and looked down the hallway, toward the door to that room. It was open. Not wide open, just cracked. Enough to see that it had definitely moved since earlier. I was sure I closed it. In fact, I always closed it. I don't know why, but something about that room being open just unsettled me. I grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, made my way to the hallway, and called out, trying to sound casual. "Hello?" No answer. I waited. Nothing but silence. I stepped closer, heart pounding harder with every footstep. The floor beneath my socks felt colder than it should have, and the closer I got to the back room, the more I noticed the air itself felt wrong, stale, almost like it had been sitting for years. I pushed the door open with my foot and scanned the room with the flashlight. Everything looked normal at first. Boxes stacked up, some tarps in the corner, a dusty old chair. But then I noticed something strange on the floor. A small, smudged footprint. Barefoot. I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed that I needed to get out, but I was too stunned to move. I scanned the room again, this time slower. That's when the beam of my flashlight landed on the window, and I saw something. The glass was fogged up, like someone had breathed on it, and in the middle of that fog there was a smudge, a handprint, on the inside. I backed out of the room as calmly as I could, closed the door, and shoved a chair under the knob. I didn't care that it wouldn't hold. I just needed something, anything, between me and that room. I ran to the front door, yanked it open, and checked the locks. Still latched. Everything locked. No broken windows, no sign of a break-in. But someone had to be in the house. I knew what I saw. I locked myself in my bedroom after that. Lights on, flashlight, and kitchen knife next to me. I didn't sleep. Every time the house creaked or settled, I flinched. But nothing else happened that night. The next morning, I went to check the back room again, this time in daylight. The footprint was gone. No fog. No handprint. Everything looked completely normal. I almost convinced myself I had imagined it all. Maybe I was been sleep deprived. Maybe the pizza had gone bad. But then on the last night, everything changed. I was brushing my teeth before bed when I heard it again. That soft thump. This time it was closer. I turned the faucet off and held my breath. There it was again. Only now it sounded like shuffling. Slow, dragging steps. From the hallway. Getting louder. My heart was in my throat. I stepped into the hallway and listened. The light at the end of the hall flickered slightly, like a power surge, and then steadied. And then I saw something move. Just a shape at the edge of the light. A figure. Someone was standing there, perfectly still, just out of the glow. I couldn't see their face, but I could tell they were barefoot. That same slow, dragging sound started again, coming toward me. I slammed my bedroom door shut and locked it. No thinking, just pure panic. I called my dad. It was almost 2 a.m. by then, and he answered groggily. I told him someone was in the house. He told me to hang up and call the cops. I did. While I waited, I sat there, listening. The sound had stopped. Everything had gone still. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, they searched the entire house. Every room, every closet, even the attic. Nothing. No signs of forced entry. No footprints. The back room? Empty. They were polite, but I could tell they didn't really believe me. They chalked it up to being alone for too long, stress, imagination. After they left, I stayed up the rest of the night, knife in hand, watching the hallway. My parents got home the next morning, and I didn't leave my room until I heard my dad's voice downstairs. I told them everything. This time they believed me. My dad checked every door and window. That's when he found something. In the back room, wedged behind one of the stacked boxes, was a vent, an old crawl space leading under the house. None of us knew it was there. The metal cover had been shifted slightly, and there were faint scuff marks in the dust around it. Someone had been down there. Someone could have been living down there. We sealed it the same day, bolted it shut. But I never felt safe in that house again. Every creak, every gust of wind made my skin crawl. I never stayed home alone after that, not once. And to this day, I still wonder, how many nights was I not actually alone? And how long was he in there before I noticed? Because the scariest part wasn't seeing the handprint. It was realizing someone was breathing in that room while I slept just down the hall. I moved into a small rental home in a quiet suburb last fall. I was fresh out of a long-term relationship and needed space, time, and quiet. The house was old but charming, with creaky floors, dated wallpaper, and that kind of musty smell you'd expect from a place that hadn't had consistent tenants in years. But it was affordable, and best of all, it was all mine. No roommates, no parents, just me. It only took a week before I started noticing strange little things. My coffee mug would be in the sink when I clearly remembered leaving it on the desk. My phone charger would go missing, only to be found in the kitchen drawer. At first, I chalked it up to stress. I was adjusting, trying to settle into a routine, and maybe I was just forgetful. Still, I started locking my bedroom door at night, more out of habit than fear. That lock would become the only reason I felt safe later on. One night, maybe 3 weeks in, I heard the faint sound of movement above me. Not the usual house-settling pops or groans. No, this was distinct, shuffling, like someone dragging their feet over the attic floor. It was around 2 a.m., and I'd been lying in bed with a book. I froze. The sound lasted maybe 5 seconds, then nothing. Just silence. I remember holding my breath, listening so hard my ears rang. I told myself it must have been a raccoon. Old houses get critters, but part of me didn't buy it. I checked the attic hatch the next morning. It was in the hallway ceiling, just a simple pull-down ladder. I had to stand on a chair to reach the rope. When I pulled it down, I noticed the latch hadn't been secured. It hung there loosely, like it had been tugged from below.
I peeked my head into the attic with a flashlight. Dust everywhere. Boxes, insulation, nothing that seemed out of place. No raccoon, no droppings. I told myself to stop being paranoid. Then, things escalated. One night, after binge-watching a show until I passed out on the couch, I woke up around 3 a.m. The TV was still glowing, but the volume was low. The room felt wrong, like someone had just been there. I sat up and looked around. Nothing. I walked to the kitchen to get water and noticed something strange. The fridge door was slightly ajar. I always close it completely because the light inside stays on if you don't. My skin went cold. I checked the front and back doors, both locked, windows locked. I told myself I must have left it like that even though I knew I hadn't. The final straw came a week later. I'd had a long day and was already in bed by midnight. I locked my door like always. Sometime later, I woke up to the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not creaks, footsteps, measured, slow. They stopped right outside my bedroom. I could hear faint breathing. Whoever it was didn't knock, didn't say anything, just stood there. I grabbed my phone and texted my neighbor, Mark, who lived 2 doors down and was the closest thing I had to a friend in the area. I didn't move. I didn't make a sound. I waited. After a few minutes, the footsteps moved away. I heard the creak of the attic ladder being pulled down, then silence. Mark called me, whispering. I answered, barely breathing. I told him someone was in the house. He said he was already on his way and to stay put. I waited, curled up in my bed, phone in one hand, a heavy flashlight in the other. 10 minutes later, I heard a knock on my bedroom window. It was Mark. He helped me out through the window and we called the police from his place. When the officers arrived, I told them everything. We went back together and I showed them the attic hatch. It was closed again, latched this time. But when they pulled it down and climbed up, one of the officers shouted. They found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, empty water bottles, even a makeshift toilet bucket. Someone had been living up there. For how long, I still don't know. They also found a small cutout in the floorboards leading to a vent that gave them a clear view into my bedroom. They never caught the person. Whoever it was must have climbed out and disappeared into the night before the police arrived. They told me it was likely a transient, someone who had slipped in during a showing or an unlocked moment and decided to stay. The landlord swore he had no idea, and I believed him. I didn't press charges, but I moved out within the week. To this day, I still wake up in the middle of the night convinced I hear breathing just outside my bedroom door, and I never sleep without checking the ceilings first.
This happened in 2016, during my senior year of high school. My parents had gone out of town for the weekend to attend a wedding 2 states over, and I had the house to myself. It wasn't the first time I'd stayed home alone, and I actually enjoyed the peace and quiet. It was a Friday night, and I had just finished dinner, watching Netflix in the living room with our dog Max curled up at my feet. I had the volume low, just enough to hear over the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing by outside. Everything felt normal, until Max suddenly got up and walked into the hallway, tail stiff, ears up, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. At first, I ignored it. Probably just one of the usual house noises, or maybe he heard something outside. But then he let out this low growl and stared down the hallway that led to the bedrooms. I paused the show and listened. I didn't hear anything. No footsteps, no voices, just silence. I called Max back over, but he stayed planted, still growling, this time louder. That's when I noticed something that immediately put me on edge. The hallway light, which I always leave on when I'm home alone, was off. I knew I had turned it on earlier because I hate walking past that long stretch of dark when I go to the bathroom at night. I grabbed the remote, turned on all the lights with the smart system, and Max finally came back to sit beside me. I told myself it was just a power glitch, but I couldn't shake this weird, tight feeling in my chest. About 30 minutes later, I started getting ready for bed. I brushed my teeth, checked all the doors, made sure the windows were locked, and even slid a chair under the back door handle just for extra peace of mind. Max followed me upstairs and curled up at the foot of my bed. I left the hallway light on again and shut the door halfway, like always. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to wind down, when I heard a sharp clicking sound coming from the vent above my bed. It was subtle, like metal shifting, but it made me freeze. Our house had one of those older central air systems with metal ductwork, and sometimes it made noises when the temperature changed. But this wasn't that. This was deliberate, rhythmic clicking. Click, pause, click, pause. Then nothing. I got up and stood on my bed to peek inside the vent. I couldn't see much. It was dark in there, but I didn't hear anything else, so I climbed down and tried to laugh it off. Maybe something settled or shifted. Maybe a squirrel or raccoon had found its way into the ductwork. It was an old house after all. I went back to bed. But not even 10 minutes later, Max suddenly shot up and started barking at the ceiling, directly at the vent. I jumped out of bed, turned on all the lights, and stood there in my room feeling completely exposed. I grabbed my phone, ready to call someone, anyone. But again, after a few minutes of silence, Max settled down like nothing happened. I stayed awake for a while, eventually dozing off with the lights still on. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I woke up again. My room was freezing. I mean really cold. My breath fogged up in front of me, and Max was gone. I called his name, but he didn't come. I sat up in bed and immediately noticed the hallway light was off again. This time, I knew I hadn't turned it off. Then I heard it. A whisper. A dry, raspy whisper coming from the vent above me. I didn't move. I couldn't. It said my name, slowly, quietly, almost like it was testing how I would react. I stared at the vent and didn't blink. For a solid minute, I just sat there, heart pounding in my ears. Then it whispered again, louder this time, my full name. I jumped out of bed, grabbed my phone and flashlight, and ran out of my room calling for Max. He was at the top of the stairs, staring at the attic door above the hallway. His tail was low, his whole body trembling. I'd never seen him like that. The attic entrance was one of those pull-down ladder types, and it was shut like normal. I turned my flashlight to it and instantly felt this wave of nausea hit me. I can't explain it. It was like my body was trying to warn me before my brain caught up. I backed away slowly, grabbed Max by the collar, and we went downstairs. I locked us both in the guest bathroom and called my cousin, who lived 10 minutes away. I told him someone might be in the house, maybe in the attic, and he promised to come right away. While I waited, I kept the flashlight pointed at the door and held onto Max like he was a lifeline. I didn't hear any footsteps, no creaks, just silence. But then, just before my cousin arrived, I heard that whisper again. This time it was outside the bathroom, still raspy, still calm. It said, "Why did you leave?" My heart dropped. I didn't respond. I just held my breath and waited. The whisper stopped. I heard my cousin banging on the front door a minute later, and I bolted out of the bathroom with Max and let him in. He checked the whole house, room by room, and even went up into the attic. Nothing. No one. The next day, I had a professional HVAC guy come check the vents. I told him I thought an animal might be in there. He found no droppings, no fur, nothing that indicated anything had ever crawled through the ducts. But he did find something odd. Several of the vents, including the one in my room, had been unscrewed from the inside. Not broken, not forced, just loosened, like someone had unscrewed them one by one from within the system. I didn't say much, just nodded and paid him. That same day, I packed up and went to stay with my cousin until my parents got back. When I finally told them everything, they were more confused than anything. My dad thought maybe I had dreamed the whispering, but when I showed him the screws from the vent, he didn't argue anymore. We had the entire duct system sealed and cleaned out, and my dad installed new locks on every door and window, plus motion cameras throughout the house. Nothing strange has happened since, but I still get chills when I walk past that vent. Every so often, when the house is quiet and the air kicks on, I swear I can hear that soft clicking again. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I still check the vent above me. Because I don't think it was a dream. I don't think it was an animal. And worst of all, I don't think it ever left.